Eagle Communications is your complete business solution with options to fit any budget. We provide business class phone with customizable features and fast, reliable internet. Your knowledgeable team at Technology Solutions has a broad base of IT services to meet your needs. Let the experts at Marketing Solutions get your message to the right people on the best platforms. Eagle Communications will build your personalized business plan. Call us at 877-61-EAGLE.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to the editor and producer of our series, Brandon Cooley. We're in the studios of Eagle Community Television. We've asked her to come back, Dr. Patricia Levy, who is a professor of social work at Fort Hays State University, now in her 17th year of teaching at Fort Hays State University. And we're going to talk about the social work program at Fort Hays State, in addition to expanding on a conference that Dr. Levy was able to attend in Brighton, England in July. Let's begin first of all with this dual citizenship, an Israeli citizen as well as a United States citizen.
Yeah, well,
that's an unusual routine for a professor at Fort Hays State, I think, Dr. Levy.
well, there are a lot more international faculty at Fort Hays. I immigrated to Israel out of the 60s. I wasn't a hippie, but I was on the French. So I went to Israel. Israel was established in 1948. I went in 70. So it was a very young country absorbing huge immigrations from all over the world. So I was there for 3 years, and one day in the mail, I got this letter from the Ministry of Interior, and it said, you know that you didn't apply for Israeli citizenship, but we're giving it to you. Sign. So there's an agreement I don't know how they do it today, but there's an agreement between the United States and Israel, and there are many Americans. There are over 100,000 or more Americans in Israel with dual citizenship.
Tell me about the social work program. You want to talk a little about that at Fort Hays State?
We have a very good faculty. Our faculty, under Dr. Tim Davis, who is from this area, all of us have been practitioners, which is unusual, in that when we teach, we actually can bring in real live examples from our own practice to the students, so they benefit from our professional experience besides the scholarly background that we have. Our students were mainly coming in originally from Northwest Kansas and down from Liberal. We're getting more and more Hispanic students into our program. The program has expanded tremendously. Our growth, we have, I don't know the specific number, but we have grown. And we have a cohort in Garden City, a cohort in Dodge, which is where I was last night, and we're going to have a cohort in Liberal, and we are talking about a cohort in Northwest Kansas, up in the Colby-Goodland area, because there aren't enough social workers. The agencies need more. And we are really extended. We are extending out. And this is really according to Dr. Davis's vision, because he wants to be sure that the underserved populations in Northwest Kansas or in rural Kansas, this side of Kansas, are getting the services that they need and the counseling. One of the unique areas of social work is that we do home visits. We're one of the few professions that actually go into the home. And we meet our clients where they're at. And in fact, that's a social work maxim, to start where the client's at. So in a very non-judgmental way, even if it's a very critical situation, we use empathy, compassion. We teach our students interviewing skills. They learn group skills. And also, we have a very strong aspect on social justice in our social work profession.
Define social justice for us. We hear that term. What does it mean, Dr. Levy?
Well, if you break it down into the concrete, it's where, for example, families will be in trouble, right? And we will provide placement for their children. And then we tell the parents, we basically don't have a structure in social services to absorb a whole family and teach them with staff, it takes money, teach them with staff about parenting and the inter-family dynamics. For families that have extreme financial difficulties, we will offer to take the children, but I really don't know. And not a lot of those parents are not abusive or neglectful, but are in a bad way.
It could
financially.
It could be economic. It could be social problems such as alcoholism or drug addiction or things of that nature.
We need more detox facilities in the state of Kansas.
To help that transition out of drug or alcohol dependency.
But many of our parents are not addicted. They just have problems. And one of the things that I heard from other professionals in town is that there is a growing population of homeless where they have lost their jobs. Sometimes I will ask a class, how many of you, your parents, have enough to live on for 3 months if they lost their jobs? 6 months, a year.
And the number of hands go down proportionally.
Yeah, and social problems cycle on each other. We do advocacy. We provide resources and referrals. There isn't enough out there. Like I said, in some ways we kind of see the things that don't work in a society. That people need more help and they shouldn't have to feel guilty because of circumstances that were out of their control. Unfortunately, there are stereotypes, and somebody will say, well, I know that family across town and they're, she's just having babies and, they're just getting welfare and this and that. That is not the majority of those families. It is really not the majority of them.
Does the social work program utilize the virtual college?
Yes, I have teach 3 classes online, 3 classes on campus, and I teach classes online. So I have a class on spirituality and aging, which is very interesting, about multicultural views of aging and healing. I have an online class on mass trauma intervention. We are going to be putting more classes up online to reach more students, particularly with the growth of our cohort programs. We have an interesting faculty because we have a diverse faculty. There is myself, and then we have a faculty member originally from Korea who did much community work in Korea, is a KU graduate with a doctorate. We have We have one woman who was the head of the National Association of Social Workers and lobbied for Kansas and lobbied in the legislature, who has now for years and gave advice to the 8 schools of social work, and she is now working for us. We have another lady who's come to us from the eastern part of the state, and then Tim, Dr. Davis, who really has a strong vision of a professional social work program that will meet the needs of Northwest Kansas people.
Dr. Levy, what can the general public, for those of us who are not engaged directly in help, what do we need to know? What can we do? How can we respond to the needs social workers see on a daily basis or experience in their counseling and working with individuals and families? What's the general public's response?
I don't know what the general public's response is, but I think that there's kind of an us versus them mentality. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not going to be those people. Mm-hmm. But I think it would really help if community people would take it upon themselves to know what social service agencies are in their community and to offer volunteer services to those agencies and find out individually what they need. Mm-hmm. You know, like you have very helpful agencies like First Call for Help and the Community Assistance Center, and you have the Ministerial Alliance in town that does, I've never met them, but I've heard that they do very good work.
Indeed.
I think that if people took more of an interest in actually approaching and initiating agencies to find out what kinds of needs they have for their clientele. Because the problem with social service agencies is that their funding comes and goes. Mm-hmm. Every time there's a change in administration, every time there's a change in the legislature, somebody else has got some idea about, well, and usually social service programs oftentimes are the first to be cut.
And well, I was thinking that that's generally the case, it seems, that those are the first to go when the budget cutting begins.
Yeah, and it kind of reinforces the us versus them mentality. But the truth is we all live here and we all have similar human needs. And some people have had more life chances than others. And to reach out and help others, you know, is a good deed. Mm-hmm. And social workers will stand up for people's civil rights, and they will advocate and help with community organizations in terms of trying to get things changed.
And those connectivities that we see makes our society and our response to those in our society, whether they be on an equal plane, a higher plane, or a lower plane, really makes the fabric of society, doesn't it, Dr. Levy?
Well, society functions at different levels, and if the federal level doesn't cover all of Americans, then we're looking more to if we can't look to the federal, then we look to the state. And if we can't look to the state, then we look to our local situations and our local populations to do grassroots movements to advocate for what they need in their communities. One of the issues is how do you get heard? How do you have a voice? Mm-hmm. So if they're not listening up there, local communities become more responsible to take care of their own.
Dr. Patricia Levy, Professor of Social Work at Fort Hays State University, our Community Connection.
Eagle Communications is the leader in advertising services. We take the guesswork out of marketing your business. From creating the message to managing the campaign, Eagle can make your business stand out. Meet customers where they shop. Take your business online with a digital campaign and showcase your products on TV and radio.
Let me help you reach the people that matter most by targeting demographics and using platforms that are proven to make your business grow. Call today. Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Hi, I'm Brandon Cooley, and I am the Video Production Director at Eagle Marketing Solutions. We're a full-service production house. Service to me really is everything. I think it's very important that we show our clients that we really have their best interest in mind. Video is very engaging. It's really the best platform to tell your story. We pride ourselves on attention to detail, creative concepts, and fast turnaround. We're always working to find new ways to make our product better and to be able to just do what we can to help the client tell their story in the best way possible.
Welcome again to our Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to the producer and editor of our series, Brandon Cooley. We're in the studios of Eagle Community Television with USD 489 Superintendent John Thissen, our Community Connection. Bond election, November 7th, 2017. John, this is a project that has been worked on and looked forward to for a long time now.
It certainly has. It's to end up having the work that's gone into it with the DLR architectural firm assisting with the vision group and those committees putting together a new plan from the plan that was existed a year and a half ago, that $94 million project. It's really quite different. This one, it's nice that they came back and created something really with a different mindset in the process.
I'd sure like to take a moment just to congratulate and thank the Vision Team volunteers for their time and their commitment and their efforts in really a long process. It took a real community involvement and commitment on the part of the Vision Team members, John.
It did, and it still does. The Vision Committee, many of them are still involved in trying to work with the public, share information, make sure that they understand the process and the reasoning behind where we have gotten to with this particular plan.
Tell us, if you would, once again for review before the election, the important points of the bond.
Sure. That was one of the first meetings. The first couple meetings had to do with trying to identify what is the priority, what are the greatest needs, and there's no doubt, there was just no doubt that the major need had to do with the elementary schools. And so the point there was trying to focus on them. Another had to do with safety and security, trying to make sure that all the schools had the proper secure entrances, and also to have the safety of a shelter for tornadoes. And so those are some of those items that was really brought up and focused on at the front end.
I think, John, that those are two of the key points that all of us in the community should remember, that this will improve safety for tornado season or other events.
Right.
It will also improve security, which right now is totally lacking in a lot of our in all of our locations, basically. If you've walked through those areas, you've seen it.
And some of the buildings really, if you were trying to do the secure entrances for a couple of our buildings, just the way they were constructed back in a couple of them in the 20s, just doesn't even allow for a good way to do it. It's just, they're just designed in such a way that it'd be very, very hard to do. The idea behind the secure entrances are very important, but the security of having the tornado shelters isn't just for the school children. A lot of individuals are not quite understanding that these are tornado shelters for the community. They will be open in the evenings when we have threatening storms as well, which will probably double or triple the number of shelters that we have at this time in Hayes.
And really multi-purpose too, because they're also classroom utilization.
Very, very true. They are classrooms. Something
too that it seems to me like with the bond sends a message to businesses, potential businesses to the community, to people who might be moving to this community, that yes, this community is making a commitment to education for our future.
I was extremely impressed with the ceremony that Fort Hays State University had when they had their opening for the new tech building that they had constructed. Just very impressed. And their statements as far as how many more students they already have for that particular college, that department, and really that's what it's about. It's the draw. It's not going to be bringing just in students, but it's going to have an effect of, in all likelihood, bringing in more people to Hays. I
remember that statement from Dr. Joey Lynn, who said, yeah, this is one of our best recruiting tools.
Exactly.
And as we look at the meetings that have taken place, the time and effort involved on your part and your staff, and also the vision team, the tours that were made of the individual buildings for the public, open to the public to see.
Right.
What was some of the feedback? What were people saying to you, John?
Well, I would say that some of the feedback, the greatest criticism that came from this project hasn't necessarily been the project unto itself. It's a matter, again, increase in taxes. And that's a very common statement. Any community is, no one wants their taxes to go up. So that's one of the concerns. The issue is as well, it's come up of saying the 30-year bond instead of a 20 or 25. Although we really have constructed it so that it really is tending to our buildings to take care of them for 30 years. At the same time, understanding that it's always going to be that case of an increase. For this community, our mill levy is, a lot of people would like to say that high tax is the way it is, but our mill levy is 43. And in a comparison to other communities that have some similarity, the high in that table that we have is 65. So even the increase in that mill levy to 55, if this would pass, really puts us more in the middle range than say that it's a high. It's high as far as what it's been, of course, if you're making that comparison, but comparing to other communities and what they have committed to those communities, they're doing it. We even have a particular table that was put together of comparing the bond elections that have taken place in the last 25 years. What was used were the schools that we compete in, with sports. And it's interesting, 15, 20 different schools that we compete with. Ours is the low. We were at the very bottom as far as the amount of dollars that's been put into our schools with bond election. And that's not, if people are thinking, well, that's the bigger communities. Well, that's some smaller communities too, smaller than Hays, and yet there's more dollars that's been put in the last 25 years.
And you and I have talked about this before too, that when our kids go to the other schools and they compete in activities,
Yes.
whether it's debate or forensics or music or whatever, and they see the facilities, there's kind of an envy, I think, there. There's kind of a downside to seeing what we have versus, as you say, what other communities in our area have.
It's noticeable, and one of the things that they had a meeting early on too with high school students. That was in the library, and they talked to the students, they being the architectural firm that assisted with this, and some of the statements came back just like that they were very proud of Hays High. They liked their school, but they're not proud of the facilities. And they stated that and it's based upon what you just said, of going to other competitions and such and seeing what exists there, and then coming home and seeing what exists here.
A couple of the other things that maybe don't get quite the publicity that maybe it should is the teaching environment, where the teachers are able to function better, to have a better outcome because they have a workspace that is conducive to teaching as well as class size,
Right.
which is one of the important things that over the years has been stressed in the Hays School District, is to keep the class size low so teachers can work one-on-one or independently with more students.
Well, this is going to, the project would allow for 8 more classrooms in the elementary. Going from 4 buildings to 3 buildings, it seems like, but the buildings are larger and they have a total of 8 more classrooms. So it should help with that class size. We're hoping to have a fewer number of students in there. One of the tours that we had was in Wilson Elementary, and it was interesting to end up hearing a couple individuals stating, oh my, you know, when they came into classrooms to see the teachers have done a fine job of doing what they can, but Wilson has, their square footage is about 650 square feet, and that is small to end up having 23 students in there. And you go to another school and they're going to be, the average is probably 850 square feet. So 200 square feet less really makes it pretty tight.
Address one of the issues that has come up, if you would, John, and that is the neighborhood school idea,
right.
That model, which I guess we've had for, well, as you say, through the 20s probably. Yeah. Address that for us.
Sure. Neighborhood school is one that was talked about at the very front end. And so we put we use Google Map and we put all the students' addresses in, identifying to Lincoln and Roosevelt, all the elementaries. And really was able to see very clearly that we are an open enrollment. We don't have neighborhood schools. We don't have boundaries that identify where students go. It's when you do this and map it just for Lincoln Elementary, it's even hard to see where the school is. When you have boundaries and you identify it that way, you can clearly see approximately where schools are. Open enrollment is different for a school district the size of Hayes. Most of the districts I've worked in, no, all the districts that I've worked in that have size like Hayes or bigger have boundaries that's identified. It works for Hayes. They've been doing it for 30 years. It seems to have some real advantages in doing that. Because of that, that brings up one of the questions as far as one of the issues was stated of where would the new elementary go. And of course there's a desire by many people to say that it's still spread throughout the community. So maybe the west side, you know, maybe that would be a good spot. We have no land on the west side. There is land, and it's possible there's money within the $78,500,000 to buy land, but there has to be someone willing to sell it, and it has to be at a price that really makes sense that we can buy it from them. If not, the only thing we've been saying is there is land by the high school. There's 40 acres there, and you could build an elementary there. Now, some people may look at that and say, well, that's a horrible location if you're looking at the whole community. Perhaps, but again, it's open enrollment. We do end up bus children if they're over 2.5 miles, you know, to the schools, and we can make it work. I would as well say maybe that's not the best plan, but we do have at least a guaranteed location where it could go.
And a lot of it really does depend on the land available,
yes,
as well as the price of that land,
the price,
which the district would need.
That's exactly right.
Final couple of things that is important here, I think, is that we all have a future impact on education in one way or another.
We do.
Make your plea to the citizens to exercise their constitutional privilege of voting November 7th, John.
Well, I think one of the points that's so important is we do have one of the items that the state is trying to press for all schools is to have civic engagement, trying to get the children to understand what are their rights and what is their responsibilities to their communities. And we are trying to press that more in the last few years of having them understand the power of voting. We are concerned that there's many people who are younger in age that perhaps that just didn't happen. Those that are in their 20s and 30s that don't quite recognize how powerful a vote can be. And one of the issues, one of the main issues we've been pressing is please vote. Just get out there, and actually starting just a couple days ago, you can have early voting. So you don't have to vote when it's crazy and busy on November 7th. You can go in at this particular time and vote early if you so choose.
Well said. USD 489 Superintendent John Thissen, our community connection.
For over 60 years, Eagle Communications has been the leader in value and service. And over that time, our specialized teams have been helping businesses grow because Eagle is your one-stop for business solutions. We can provide the latest in hosted phone, reliable fiber internet, IT support, business compliance, and network planning. Plus, we offer affordable advertising on television, radio, and digital platforms. Call our employee owners today and let us serve you. Eagle Communications, our community connected.